Hi everyone, I'm Colette and I'm welcoming you here to Witch Ways, and today I'm going to talk about 5 of my favorite magical trees that you can use in witchcraft and for your spells. Enjoy! Ash is a really powerful tree. In Norse magic, it is the tree of life, or Yggdrasil, which is the tree that Odin hung himself on, that sacrificed himself on in order to receive wisdom and the runes. It's the tree that connects the underworld, the middle world, and the overworld. In Celtic tradition, it is sacred to the god Lu. It is said to be the tree that the first man was created from, and it is also one of the 5 guardian trees of the island of Ireland. All of the trees that I'm talking about today have multiple qualities that you can draw on magically, and that depends on what culture we're talking about or what period in time, modern uses or more ancient, but I'm going to share several for each tree. Ash is associated with strength, health, courage, and protection. It's a symbol in the Celtic tree alphabet for the letter Nin. However, the original meaning of that probably did not mean ash tree. It probably meant something like weaving or peace or weaving community together. You can call on that tree. You can use that symbol, that letter from the Celtic alphabet, to use in your magic whenever you're trying to call on the magical qualities of the tree. You can also burn it as incense or just call the name of the tree itself. Some of the ways I work with the parts is to take ash leaves and place them in vehicles to help protect you against an accident. The wood of the tree is traditionally burned at Yule or winter solstice, and that helps bring prosperity in the coming year. And the winged seeds were often used to protect infants and children, and they were placed in a charm bag and then put in the cradle or directly in the bed. Personally, the way I would use it is I would burn the twigs whenever I was working on a project where I was weaving multiple parts together or multiple personalities together on a project in community. Rowan is sometimes called the Lady of the Mountain because she is so strong and tough and can survive anywhere. It's also sometimes called Thor's Aid because it saved him from drowning. And in both Celtic and Norse mythology, the first human woman was created from it. Brigid, the goddess of Celtic poetry, smithcraft, and healing, also claims this tree because of its association with fire and bright flame, which is one of her qualities. And it's also known as the Celtic alphabet letter Lewis, and that originally probably meant shining flame, brightness, illumination, something along those lines. You can call on Rowan for inspiration and clarity when you are at crossroads or when you need a clear vision. You can burn the leaves or bark as incense when you're asking for this. The Druids used to burn dried leaves and bark to conjure spirits or to banish them. I would take that with a huge grain of salt because often the things that the Druids did was written down centuries later by people who may or may not have been knowledgeable about their practices since it was an oral tradition. I also wouldn't do this as a beginner because you don't know who's going to show up and you don't know if you have the skills to actually get them to go away or what they might want. You can carry the bark and berries in a charm bag whenever you're recovering or you're recuperating from an illness and to enhance healing for yourself. And you can also put the berries in a tea or a potion of some kind and then use that as a wash anytime you want to enhance your intuition. Hawthorne is one of my favorite trees, but it's really mixed in terms of its reputation and uses magically. It was used a lot in Celtic countries during Beltane's season. However, it was considered unlucky to bring it indoors at any other time of year. Romans were less cautious and they used it in marriage bouquets, put it under the marriage bed for fertility and lust and to ensure a fruitful marriage. Hawthorne is associated with Flora from the Roman culture, with the goddess Maya from Greek culture, and the goddess Nemetona, who is a Celtic Gallic goddess that not a lot is known about, but there are records of devotions to her and of her worship, which is not true of many of the earlier gods. And she was the goddess whose name was associated with consecrated space or sacred groves, and Hawthorne is said to be special to her, as are any trees that grow in a grove. The Celtic letter for Hawthorne is hua, although that name originally probably meant something like fear or terror, which is one of the reasons I have some cautiousness about it for beginner use. Trees are protective in general, and thorns are strongly protective. And hawthorn has some really nice sharp thorns on many of the species of it. So you can use it when you put together a charm or an amulet or some kind of container for protection. You can fill it with hawthorn thorns and hold the intention of protection. It also was gathered as greenery during the Beltane season to decorate the house, and it's really interesting to me that a huge branch of it was often cut and leaned outside the house at Beltane and then decorated extensively, much the way we might decorate a Yule tree. I really kind of love that tradition, and I'm definitely going to do it next year. You can use the berries in any kind of potion, as incense in a charm or a steam, to open and cleanse the heart and heal the heart. And in Germanic countries, it was placed on the funeral pyres to help gently lift the soul from the body. And I'm thinking about those kind of things a lot these days, now that so many people are being cremated, which is fine, but it's a very clinical industrial setting, and I'm kind of wondering about the practice of taking some plants and tucking them in with the body to be burned to help hold a little bit more magical space for that ceremony. Elder is another one that is kind of mixed and a bit tricky, maybe not for beginners, but it is the tree that is a gateway to the other worlds and can help you see into those worlds or travel to those worlds. And I would only do that if you have a reciprocal pre-existing relationship with the people of that realm. For example, one of the traditions is that if you stand under a blooming elder tree at Midsummer's Day, you can travel to fairy again. I would be really cautious about that unless you have a long established relationship with them. And the other tricky part comes from the fact that the Sidhe definitely claim this tree as their own, and they tend to be very protective of things that they consider theirs, especially with the general expansion and encroachment of the mundane human world. Elder is associated with the queen of the Sidhe. It's also associated with the crone aspect of the deity, and often with deities of the underworld in Celtic tradition. Often the gate of the underworld is guarded by Elder. It's a guarder of boundaries between other worlds and us. Magically, it's connected with the properties of transformation, death, rebirth. It was also planted outside of houses for protection, and a long branch of it was hung over doorways outside to propel and protect the house from any negative magic. Ruus is the Celtic alphabet letter associated with Elder. Originally, that letter symbol probably meant passion, as in anger, shame, embarrassment, lust, all the really intense, fiery emotions that one might carry. I was taught that to harvest elder, you had to ask really specifically and take a moment to center yourself and ask the tree if you could harvest wood from it. Often there was a charm said, giving yourself back after death to nourish the tree in exchange for the wood. So again, be very cautious. I was taught also herbally that you have to always make an offering to the base of the tree, to the little elder mother or little Hildamore who lives there and is the guardian spirit of the tree. I would use elder for wands to enhance the will. And so you have to, again, be really clear that you know that you really want and have really thought through what you're asking for. I would call on elder to guide someone through the process of dying and ask for their help as they make that crossing. Sometimes people buried sticks of it with people who died to help ease their passing. And you could maybe call on her by one of her old names of Hildamore or Eldamore. I would also use the wood as protection outside of the house. Oak is beneficial in all the ways it's used, and you can see that for yourself if you just sit with the tree for a minute. It's really tall, it's really big, it grows really ancient, it survives fire well, it survives lightning strikes, it gives food to animals. Its wood is also really strong and long-lasting for buildings or using in fires. It's very dense, strong wood, and it's my go-to for any kind of magic that I'm doing for expansion, prosperity, abundance, luck, health, or protection because of its strength and its power. Oak is associated in Celtic countries with the Dagda, who is the good god. It's associated with Thor in Norse countries, with Perun in Slavic countries, with Jupiter in Roman areas, and the leaves, acorns, or wood can be carried as a charm for health and long life. You can use oak leaves or acorns in a charm bag for luck. I like to add hazelnuts for wisdom. You can also burn the bark or leaves for success incense and spray the house with a tea made of oak leaf or oak bark as protection to infuse the house with that protection inside or out. It is likely to stain paint, especially light colored or new paint, so you do need to be careful with that. And it's a great one for beginners to start to work with. I believe in asking permission whenever you harvest anything from any plant. And even when I pick things up off the ground around the city, I thank the tree, even though it's freely there for anyone to take, and then I wash it when I bring those things home. Let me know in the comments what kind of plants you like to use in magic. And I would also really appreciate it if you would check out my Patreon channel. There's a lot of amazing content on there, some of which is freely open to the public, and it does really help support me in my work as a witch and as a content creator. As always, I'd also really appreciate it if you like, subscribe, and maybe hit that notification bell. And until next time, stay safe and be well.